All right. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. This ain't your mama's progressive channel. And as the famous ancient philosopher Socrates spent his life doing, teaching people that they really didn't know anything. So if you are capable of starting there, then you are capable of getting smarter. So the early chatters are in. Greetings, guys. I'm looking through some of these early chats. I know it's a Sunday. Just any old random Sunday. I know people are chilling because there's pretty much nothing else to do. Rosa Remen. Offering a Biden quote. When will it be safe to touch your grandkids again? Eee. Yeah, yikes. Poppy Davis says, God, I hope Jesse hasn't molested anyone. Well, I don't think so. I think that would have come out by now. He's already been the governor of Minnesota. He's already been a public figure for a really long time. I seriously doubt he's got something like that in his past. But who knows? You never know. But I just don't think so. And as much as the establishment really doesn't like Jesse Ventura, and they don't, they don't. Um, you know, if they wanted to get some dirt on him, they would have already done it. Deacon 1959 says all the major airlines are grounded and they're putting their pilots on half pay for now. Excuse me, sorry. Uh, yeah, half pay sucks, but I guess it's better than no pay. I'm hearing that some people, yeah, have like a certain amount of time that they're still getting salaries, but after a couple months, they're like, that's it. A lot of people have been laid off with no salary, so there's that. Poppy Davis, the more you know, the more you know you don't know. Exactly. Is that does that align with the Dunning Kruger effect? I guess somewhat, or am I getting it right? Because I don't know. I think I got it right. So the more you know, the more you might question your own thinking around something, right? I guess that would be the trajectory of that idea. The less you know, or the less intelligent you are, whatever that means, might mean the more that you are invested in whatever you know being right. I don't know. Chris Lai says, masterclass on hostage negotiation, so appropriate for the times. What does that mean? What does that mean? Anthony Davis, how you doing? Keith Hayes, the chips fall where they may, and some people get no chips. There's that also. Come on in, guys. I know it's a little earlier than usual. That's okay. Boiled Rope Lamppost says drinking from a data fire hose. Anthony Davis says most people I see in Dallas are wearing masks, at least when in the Home Depot and Kroger store. Well, that's good. Yeah, I mean, I think that's just the general rule these days is that, if you're going into some kind of establishment, most of them require that you wear a mask. At least in California they do. If you're going to be around people or in closer contact with people, then you wear a mask. And then, if you're at home or if you're spread out, then maybe you take the mask off. Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, get on in here, guys. Yeah, so I question my own thoughts all the time. Probably. Um, Obsessively question my own thoughts. Um, I don't know. Even when I'm typing an email, you know, I get stuck in the middle of it. I'm like, is that how you spell that word? I usually have the right spelling in mind, but I'm like super paranoid about spelling something wrong. And then I end up spelling things wrong all the time anyways, even though I'm paranoid about it. Keith Hayes, wear a mask when buying ammo. Indeed. Or buying your favorite strain of weed. You ever seen the Milky Way on weed? Anybody know what that quote is from? Anthony Davis. So I'm still waiting for my Amazon order from 2 weeks ago, waiting for masks and a recliner. Ooh, recliner. Living good. That's a long time to wait, though. 2 weeks, right? It's kind of long for Amazon, right? You can't spell apocalypse? Apocalypse? Apox on lips? I can't get this pox off my lips. I don't know. Has anybody had any symptoms, fever or chills or anything lately? I have not. I have not seen. Nobody else has really reported much. I know that Forrest said he was experiencing, or he thought he was going through the COVID. Boiled Rope Lamppost, Pennsylvania militia. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It might take 2 more weeks. Jesus Christ. Rosa Remen, masks are a boon for ugly folks. I don't know. There might be something to that because when I'm out and about, I'm looking at a lot of ladies' eyes, and I'm like, man, you got some nice eyes. I have no idea what the rest of their face looks like. Um, but I'm sure I might, I might not be looking as closely at people's eyes if I saw the rest of their face. Sorry, overshare. Anyways, let's get into some stories because we've been chit-chatting a little bit. Excuse me. Oh geez, what the heck is going on? So yeah, the title of this video is Double Standard du Jour. And I mean, I could actually make every single video about the double standards in the media, the double standards in our society, the double standards of human beings. I mean, this is an endless. There you go. Jody Connolly says, I don't know if I got it or not. Sorry. Well, I don't know. Yeah, this is an endless subject, and so many different angles at which double standards could be analyzed. But let's make sure we got this going. Anyways, let's start with this. And I have been saying this, and other people have been saying this as well. This is not a novel idea. Australia listened to experts on coronavirus. It's time we heard them on climate change. Yeah, because, we can listen to the experts and lock people down on a global scale and completely tank our economies because we're dealing with something that is as life-threatening as coronavirus is. And look, I'm not questioning necessarily those actions, but quite a few other things are pretty life-threatening. We don't lock down society for that. There's a point in there. There are quite a few other things that are as deadly as coronavirus. Not saying that, obviously, if we didn't have lockdowns and quarantines, it would be much, much more deadly. A lot more people would get sick and die. So I'm not, but and when brought up in the face of climate change, it's kind of difficult to prove how many people climate change has killed already or is killing on a daily basis. But the potential for climate change to be an incredibly deadly situation, massively deadly. I mean, absolutely catastrophically deadly. Let's actually look at animals. So it's not killing humans en masse so far as, people might claim or say, well, where are all these deaths? However, if you just look at the animal world, and it's very simple, we've had multiple reports that vertebrates, insects, vertebrates, and sea life is dying at a catastrophic rate already. We've lost in some areas something like 80% of insect life, and in some areas of the planet we've lost 50% of vertebrate life, more than that. In some places, sea life is being affected just as equally. So we look at how good humans are doing, and we're like, well, I don't see anything wrong yet. But we're not really paying attention to the animal world or the environment at large. We're only paying attention to the humans because, of course, we're so humanist. Economic reconstruction is a chance to speed up decarbonization, and the pandemic has shown a different kind of politics is possible. It's possible, right? A different kind of politics is possible. That's exactly what climate change is showing us. And we're supposed, Joe Biden is telling us to listen to the experts, and all the people on the TV are telling us to listen to the experts, and all the people on the media are telling us to listen to the experts. Oh, I am Sweetleaf. No, Big Lebowski is wrong. I'll let you keep guessing. I'll give you the answer at the end of the video. How's that? We're supposed to be listening to the experts on coronavirus, and we should. But do we listen to the experts on climate change? I mean, we spend a lot of time wanting to debate the experts, wanting to say that the experts are, possibly bought or sold. I don't know. We're not really listening to the experts on climate change. So, here's a glaring double standard in the way that we treat something that might destroy the entire planet. Wiping out eventually millions, if not billions of people. And yet we have locked down, we've listened to the experts, and we've locked down the entire country over coronavirus. Um, we've already been swamped with ideas about reforms needed to recover from the pandemic crisis, but the word reform is like gift wrap, a handy cover for any offering, thought through or otherwise. Perhaps we should ditch the word entirely, and with it the forest of field opinions, that's good, about what governments must do to advance an author's previously held ideological position in the post-corona world. Imagine if we took just 2 lessons from the way Australian governments responded to the coronavirus. That good decisions are made when they consider the evidence and the best available expert advice, and that policymaking can accommodate reasonable differences of opinion without becoming a war. Think, as Laura Tingle did in a piece for the ABC's 7:30 this week, of the difference it would make if interviewers and commentators allowed room for discussions of complex and competing ideas before demanding that politicians rule them in or out, or before finding a backbencher who will say they might cross the floor on a policy that conflicts with their ideological prejudice, even if that policy hasn't yet been outlined. Now consider if those principles were applied to climate policy in Australia. I concede that's quite a gap, or quite a leap, given the past decade of mind-numbing debate during which experts have struggled to get a look in, but in the background, some have been giving it a shot. For 6 years now, leading business, environmental, investor, union, farming, and social welfare groups have been trying largely in vain to create a space for a sensible discussion about global heating, good word, global heating, and to give Australian politicians a way to retreat from the self-defeating culture war that has scuppered all attempts at policy. They wouldn't put it this way, but in effect, the environmentalists desperate for Australia to make some meaningful move towards reducing emissions, and the business groups desperate for some kind of investment certainty, have been trying to save Australia's politicians from themselves. The starting point for Australian Climate Roundtable's deliberations is that Australia needs to reach net zero emissions, and that delaying action just increases the cost of reaching that goal. Unremarkable propositions in any fact-based forum, but in some coalition circles, still close to heresy. So indeed, the way that Donald Trump is being lambasted about his response to coronavirus, and the way that, China is being held up as some kind of villain, or some kind of, held up as being responsible for the virus and its spread or whatever. But when they were locking everybody down, and, a severe lockdown was in effect, people were calling it authoritarian, draconian, et cetera, et cetera. Not every country has taken the road that China has, and some countries have fared okay or fared much better than the United States without taking those measures. However, the United States has obviously failed to contain the coronavirus, and we are now, we are the epicenter of this pandemic, and we have been for many weeks, and we will continue to be so for who knows how long. Yeah, so why, what do we say in the face of politicians who don't take any action on climate change? Right now, no worries. What do we, but why not hold up these politicians who are taking no action or denying outright climate change? Why can't we have that discussion around climate change? Why can't we have these actions around climate change that we're taking around coronavirus? Why, I ask you. Lamb basted. Nothing like some basted lamb. Yeah, I mean, why can't we take drastic action as we've taken in the face of COVID? Why? I was just kind of having a discussion with a friend around this, look at all the upsides to this coronavirus. The air is clean, no traffic, lots of industrial activity has declined or ceased altogether. We've shown that we can lock down a lot of our activity while still keeping human beings alive. So the argument that this is somehow going to impinge on people's standard of living or lively. You're really impinging, excuse me, mainly on people's privilege to move around or do whatever they want. And isn't that the problem, right? With overconsumption, with destruction of the environment, with wanton, use of resources, with giving humans more and more and more and everything that they want. I mean, that's really just the freedom to destroy the environment. It's a huge privilege, is what it is. Human privilege, viewed through a different lens, might be called a human right or a standard of living. But if you align it with something like white privilege, which is a real thing, absolutely. And the thing about white privilege or human privilege is that everybody, either everybody should be able to experience the same amount of privilege, or everybody should not be able to experience the same amount of privilege, depending on what you're talking about, depending on the situation, right? Yeah, human privilege right now equates to the ability to destroy the environment. So this author is bringing up some really great points. And the ability to destroy the environment. Do we have the right to do that? Should we have the privilege to do that? I think not. I think not. Think about that the next time. So hold on. The Australian energy market operator this week released its long-awaited renewable integration study, which found Australia could accommodate levels of up to 75% instant penetration of wind and solar in its main grid by 2025. That's pretty amazing that we have the know-how but need to update market and regulatory settings. Think about that the next time someone starts burbling on about the impossibility of a renewable dependent grid coping when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine. Less than a year after an election in which Bill Shorten's target of 45% renewables by 2030 was attacked for being unachievable and economy wrecking, the expert market operator says 75% is technically achievable in just 5 years. And then there was the advice from the International Energy Agency this week that renewable electricity will be the only energy source resilient to the biggest global energy shock in 70 years triggered by the pandemic. That's very interesting, actually. Because, well, not only is the source not going to get shut off, the source of wind and sun or geothermal not going to get shut off due to a pandemic, but also many of these energy sources are local. So you're not necessarily shipping in energy, wind energy or solar panel energy from a long way away. Anyways, bringing up a very valid question in this article about why we can't have a response. An overwhelming global response to climate change. She's just talking about Australia, but why not Australia? Why not UK? Why not the US? Why not Canada? Why not Mexico? Why not France? Why not Italy? Raza Remen, it is ecocide indeed. Scott Andrews says we probably don't have 5 years. Excuse me. We probably don't. But you know, I have to push back on the we don't have 5 years left on the planet, or we don't have 5 years to try and make a change. I mean, we probably don't. But why not? Why not try? The thing to me that this is what I've learned in a very short span of time over the last 4 or 5 years. Um, that I've been focusing on this issue. I've been paying very close attention to this issue. I've listened to plenty of Guy McPherson videos. I've listened to a lot of different videos on climate change. I've read a bunch of different papers and read a bunch of articles on climate change. And so, some people, not just Guy McPherson, but many people have said, "Oh, well, we're going to see collapse in the next year or two, or this is it. Here it comes. Here we go over the falls." And here we are. Here I am, still 5 years later. The system is still intact, more or less. Doesn't mean that it's a good system, but it's still intact. And the only way that we're going to make an organized effort to counter the effects of climate change is if we do it globally, right? And if we do it with the system, with our entire system intact. That's the only way we're going to do it. But the thing is why waste time? Why are we going to wait? So what if we only have 5 years? So what if we only have 2 years? Now is the time to make some real effort in trying to not destroy the entire planet, and trying to go the other way. Because the reason why I say this is because maybe we only have 2 years, maybe we only have 5 years, but what if we have 10 or 15 years? What if the Earth system is more resilient than we think? We don't know. We don't know. What if ice-free Arctic isn't the tipping point that we thought it would be? It could be. It might be. It very well might be. All the science points to it being a huge tipping point. But what if it isn't? What if we lose ice for a month in the summer every year for the next 20 years, and yet it doesn't create a situation where we still can't grow food, or humans can't survive or can't live. All I'm saying is that we don't know how much time we have, but that doesn't mean we should not try. I really don't think that means that we should not try. Rich Dianas, Karana says bye-bye. Well, so Karana is one of those people, that keeps, throwing out these predictions, and, okay, I'll take the science. I'll hold it up as certainly feasible, as a possibility. I give it whatever % chance of actually being the path that we're on. But what if it's not? What if it's not? You don't know that. He doesn't know that. Nobody knows that. Guy McPherson doesn't know that. I'm not saying that Guy's science is bad, but, Guy's been predicting the possibility of the end every single year for the last 4 years. So, and it hasn't happened. That doesn't mean to throw out all of Guy's science. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying, I'm not saying, Guy's a bad person for saying that. I'm just saying the reality is, here we are. And maybe it's this year, maybe it's next year, maybe it's the year after that, but here we are, and there's absolutely no reason to not do our very, very best while we're still here, because we don't know. We could have 20 years, 25 years. We have no idea. And if we waste 20 years going, here it comes, this is the year, which we certainly could do that, then it would be really, really stupid 20 years from now for us to go well, damn, we had a whole 20-year window to actually do something. And we wasted that window talking about, here's the end. I mean, that is ridiculous. Keith Hayes says thinking in binary is dangerous and deranged. McPherson is the poster boy for it. Well, I mean, McPherson doesn't say stop trying either. he doesn't say stop trying or try not. He's not saying don't do the right thing in the face of overwhelming odds. That's exactly what he says: is try and do the right thing in the face of overwhelming odds. He says exactly those words. I'm just saying, living as if this is it, this is the year, or this is the end, and expecting that to be the reality has actually gotten a little bit, I've actually kind of gotten over it a little bit. I'm like, well, it didn't actually turn out to be the reality. So what is the reality? The reality is, you have to kind of be able to carry a few things in your head at the same time, which is, could be really, really soon, but it also could not be really, really soon. So how are you going to deal with this? How are you going to go forward? How are you going to live with this? Michael Lee says, try just a little bit harder, indeed. Rosa Remen, I am very trying, indeed. You're right, Chris Lai. Exactly. It's not Guy's science. Well, he's putting together, and lots of other people are putting together the thoughts. Basil Peterson, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate you for keeping us still trying and, of course, allowing us to gather as a community. Thank you so much, Basil. I appreciate you. Yeah, well, and there you go. We'll only know if McPherson is right when it's all over. However, he did blow up his life based on his predictions. It's rare to see that kind of courage. Indeed. Yeah, no, I mean, I think most of us are here in one way or another because of Guy McPherson, or we're, at where we're at in the knowledge of climate change because of Guy McPherson on some level. So, I got to give it up for Guy. I'm just saying the reality is that we're still here, and expecting us to not, the possibilities of how long we have of the window, how big of a window we have, are a little wider than I think that most might want to think. So, Gaia McPherson. That's good. If Guy McPherson was a spiritual healer, his name would be Gaia McPherson. Cindy Seeley, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate you. Environmental Coffee House, thank you so much for the super chat. We are a community, indeed. I agree with you. I wasn't able to watch your show last night, Sandy. I'm sorry. I'm going to actually watch it today. I was very interested in catching it, but I was actually hanging out with a friend, so which is kind of rare in these days and times. You got to take your socializing where you can. Henry Holt says industrial civilization was always a lie. Cities and towns dependent on outside resources was never going to last. Indeed. Local. The more local any particular region is, the more resilient they're going to be in the face of anything, pandemic, climate change, disaster, whatever it might be. Going south says, for me, it was more like Sam Carana. Well, sure. Yeah, no, it takes a lot of courage, indeed. Chris Elias says, I would never jeopardize a tenured position, which is almost impossible to do. You're right. It's a license to retire well. You're right. Yeah, I mean, he gave up a lot. But he also says, Guy also says all the time, I messed up. I shouldn't have done that. His powers of hindsight are pretty good. He realizes and admits that he made a mistake doing that. Well, let's move on to another story. To get into the Planet of the Humans controversy, which seems to be never ending, but on the Hill, they interviewed Josh Fox And this is a pretty good interview because they really they did it. They questioned him pretty intensely on his point of view. Um, they pushed back pretty well against what he was trying to say. And let's just watch this opening. Make sure this is on. Let's just watch this opening statement from Michael Moore, which pretty much sums it up, I think.
Planet of the Humans, a new film on green energy, has become the subject of intense debate in the environmental movement. The film's executive producer, Michael Moore, he had this to say in response to his critics on our show in a recent interview. Let's take a listen.
We are lifelong environmentalists. And if we can't say to each other, hey, look, we might be on the wrong path here because we're not winning this battle. Everybody knows it. Everybody watching this knows. Are we winning the battle against the climate emergency that we're in the middle of? No. So if we're not winning, why don't we have the discussion about what we need to do? Because it cannot go on any longer.
Bam. I mean, that it doesn't really get much more succinct and direct than that. We're not winning the battle. We're not making any kind of overarching changes in the climate catastrophe that's unfolding. We might be making dents here and there, and that's true. Whatever commitments or investments we've made in green energy or in trying to transition to a different kind of economy, have made small dents in the system that continues to destroy the environment. But Michael Moore is dead on there. We are not winning the battle. We're not, making great changes. We're not, turning the tide. We're not turning the ship around. We're losing. So indeed, we must have a conversation or a debate or whatever you want to call it, a real conversation about what it is we need to do. That conversation is not happening. And I think that the pushback or the backlash that this film is getting is mostly due to the fact that, people are not really willing to embrace ugly truths about what is happening to our planet. And they really want to insist that this transition is going fine, everything's great, renewable energy is great, we're making changes, we're on the right path, et cetera, et cetera. I agree we should make more changes. I think we should go headlong into making changes. We should do everything that we can to try and help the environment and try to end the destruction, the overwhelming destruction of humans on the planet. But are we going to do that with renewable energy? Are we going to stop the overwhelming destruction of the planet by humans with renewable energy? That is actually the basis of the question. And some people think that we're going to be fine. Henry Holt, that's a really great point you bring up. The movie missed that small home passive solar is great. You're right, it is. And I had a conversation with somebody about that as well. That, personal solar is probably the best way to go. I think, the problem it might be in trying to keep these huge energy systems going with renewable energy is probably difficult, if not, next to impossible, right? We can't build massive wind farms or massive solar farms to keep the grid going. But if we had our own, if we were not on a grid, but we had the ability to create our own energy where we were at, or had maybe small local energy sources, I think that would be much more the way to go. And I'm not against that. I'm not against that at all. But again, that's, I guess, part of the debate. Look, he wanted to have a debate about it, and he got a debate. So there you go. Quiztune says, I've been grateful for Fox's work. I was disappointed in the way he responded in this interview. No specifics, full of catchphrases and personal attacks. Yeah, and he actually caught himself in a bit of hypocrisy and double standard. There were some things that he said that were a little bit like, what is going on, man? Let's see if we can get to another part that I thought was interesting. Let's play it.
This film trots out a solar panel from 2008 and says it's the same thing. This film capitalizes on the fact that people don't understand renewable energy, and renewable energy literacy is very low, and that is deceptive. And they know it's deceptive.
So, Josh, I want this kind of gets to the last point I want to make with you, which is you've led a really concerted campaign basically to shut this film down. And my real question is why not? Why is it not at least sparking some conversation or debate? Look, you're making a lot of claims here. I'm saying that it's backed in science. That's not necessarily the case, or it's very much in dispute about trillions of dollars and debts and many of these things. Look, it can all be up for debate. That's one thing I've absolutely learned within this discussion. Why the effort to try and cancel the film? That's what I don't understand.
First of all, let me just clarify. We asked the filmmakers themselves for a retraction, as if we were approaching a newspaper that had published a story.
He's lying. He just lied right there. So they actually took the film down, or said that the film should be taken down. So they didn't start with the retraction. They actually took it down. He was behind trying to get it taken down, and then they put it back up. So he lied right there.
It's incorrect. And that is not censorship. That is not canceling the film. That is us as the community of scientists and filmmakers saying to the filmmakers, listen, you guys, you got all this stuff wrong. You got to pull this, and you got to reconsider what you're doing. That is very, very different than censorship. But to say that we are having a debate echoes the very things that the fossil fuel industry does. The fossil fuel industry says, oh, well, we have to have a debate about climate change. We have to have a debate about fracking. We have to have a debate about all these things that are scientifically proven in terms of the acceptance of the entire scientific community. So there is no debate about whether or not renewable energy works. There is no debate about the incredible...
So there is another strange thing for him to say. There's no debate about whether renewable energy works. How well does it work? Every instance of renewable energy isn't necessarily workable or environmentally friendly, right? So, some of the points that were brought up in the film, I think, were completely valid, like the fact that it takes quite a bit of fossil fuel energy to create these systems. You can't get around that. It takes quite a bit of, mining of minerals that are rare in order to create these systems. Also very environmentally destructive. That's, all those things were true. So he's kind of just, he's saying some things that are blanketly false. I could go on, but I don't want to just spend this video playing that video. But anyways, they did a good, if you watch that interview, they did a good job of pushing back on Josh Fox. They were almost a little bit dismissive of him. They were kind of like, all right, guy. And the whole idea that this film is somehow helping the fossil fuel industry, or playing into this idea that there needs to be a debate around climate change. They're not debating that climate change isn't real. That not at one point do they ever say that or imply that. So, Sandy, this mic is not that expensive. I don't remember exactly what it was. Like 150, maybe 100, probably more. More like 150. I'm not sure. I can't remember. I bought it a long time ago. Right. I'm Sweet Leaf. Good point. I thought Planet of the Humans says the problem is wanting to solve the sixth extinction we face using profit as a way to fix the problem. Right. And as Henry Holt brings up, um, if we had decentralized, energy systems, well, that kind of takes a little bit. Obviously, there's profit in the making of the panels and installing it in your house or wherever. And Osama, yeah, you're right. Solar PV efficiency is double what they say in the doc. That's very true too. So there are some valid points to bring up about the film, indeed. But the thing is, if you had decentralized power, if people were living like off grid, then the powers that be couldn't necessarily control the power sources. So there, it's a complicated problem. I think the film does a good job of, poking the beehive, if you will. Seventh Extinction. I keep hearing Seventh Extinction now, so I'm going to have to get up on that. Or if somebody could explain to me quickly why we're at the seventh extinction and not the sixth. Did we miss one in our calculations? Is that what happened? Raza says, Osama, I see your seventh and raise you eighth. Yeah, it does look cool. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, electric cars work. However, are they all being powered by solar energy or wind energy, or how much? What are they being powered by? Creative Experiment says doubling efficiency does nothing if you keep giving green dollars to billionaires. There are a lot of questions that the film brings up, I think, that are totally valid. Do they get everything right? No, they don't. But I think the bomb that they dropped was a credible bomb. There was a pre-end Permian mass extinction. Okay. Okie doke. Basil Peterson says, my panels are 22% efficient and are warranted for 25 years. Been off-grid for 10 years, so I think we got 10 years left. Yeah, that's great. And I actually desire some solar panels myself. So, and I think PV efficiency will get better, indeed. I think that renewable energy is a great idea. I think it's definitely going to evolve and get more efficient and get better. But I think we need to actually have a serious talk about degrowth. We can do both. Keith Hayes succinctly says, change in lifestyle is the enemy of the Green New Deal. Right. Right. The dude seems to be arguing from the perspective that we can save ourselves by simply changing our energy sources without changing our consumptive lifestyle, which is fantasy. Right. Indeed. And these are all salient points in the debate, right? Right. And Sandy, if you had solar, how much solar would you get year round? You'd have to have some kind of storage, right, for your solar. Because where you live you don't necessarily get a lot of sunshine all year round, right? Am I assuming that wrongly or rightly? Osama, good point. They have to work on making panels more easily recyclable, yes. And more accessible, too. I think, I think they're fairly accessible. but not everybody has them. It's strange because Los Angeles, there's a lot of solar panels here, but not as many as say like Sacramento. If you drive through Sacramento, from as you're driving into Sacramento, every fucking house has a solar panel. All kinds of houses have solar panels. It's way more common there, and it's that's surprising, right? You would think, Los Angeles being all progressive and forward thinking, that solar panels would be everywhere. They're not necessarily everywhere here. Man, so we've been talking about all kinds of things, and time has just flown by. Uh, so here comes a lot of weird double standards. So we've been seeing this story of protesters, armed white guys at the Capitol of Michigan. Obviously, this is the epitome of white privilege, right? Because if these were black people, they would be it would be a hostage situation, right? They'd be holed up in the Capitol. They'd be holed up in the Capitol, surrounded by SWAT teams, ordering them out, or maybe throwing smoke grenades in the Capitol to get them out. For some reason, I can't say the word Capitol today. Right. So, this is obviously pretty wild that this militia group, they say they have no political affiliation, from Michigan, stands in front of the governor's office after protesters occupied the Capitol in Lansing on Thursday during a vote on extending Governor Gretchen Whitmer's emergency declaration and stay-at-home order in response to the coronavirus outbreak. And of course, Donald Trump describes the protesters in Michigan as very good people, which he seems to, call, white guys protesting or creating, disturbances, very good people, and, black people protesting for their rights. He calls them all kinds of other names. So obviously, Trump, the epitome of double standard hypocrisy, but what's really crazy about this, and I was speaking to a friend about this yesterday, is that they're actually protesting orders that are federal orders from the CDC. So they're, like the Trump administration's own orders that they have approved and okayed. Michigan is just has been just following those orders. They went a little bit farther, I think, over a couple things, but there's a couple of weird angles about this story. Obviously, yeah, right, like white guys with guns showing up at the Capitol is pretty insane, because other people wouldn't be allowed to get away with that stuff. The dude, they look like spoiled rich kids with their toys. Yeah. On the other hand, I have to say, from like a, I guess from a revolutionary standpoint, or from a checking government power standpoint, yeah, these guys are, they're idiots, because these orders are in place to help save people's health and save people's lives, right? So, they're just, spoiled, entitled assholes. How dare you impinge on our freedoms, our freedoms? They're upset about not being able to do all the things they want to do, when people are actually locking down for the purpose of, protecting the public health and saving people's lives, and not everybody not getting sick and dying. So this is kind of ridiculous on many levels. And why aren't these guys protesting the corporate giveaway from the Republican Party, or from both parties, basically, from the government to corporations, right? So they're protesting these lockdown orders, which is completely stupid. But what they should be doing, what if they showed up at the Capitol building dressed like this with AR-15s? What would happen then? We're protesting the government giving away trillions of dollars to corporations. We're protesting the loss of trillions of dollars by the Pentagon. What would happen then? Why aren't they protesting something that's actually really a problem? I don't understand. This looks like all a big show, by these guys trying to look tough and like they have a say in something they don't really actually have a say in, but it's rather ridiculous. This is going on all over the country, of course, in California and Huntington Beach. All these, Huntington Beach is in Orange County, which is mostly right-wing, or a lot of right-wing folks live there. A lot of conservatives live in Orange County, so all the Trumpers are out in Orange County saying, "Let us, go to the beach," whatever. The governor is like, "No, you can't go to the beach." It's fairly wild. Again, with privilege, I think anybody should be allowed to show up at the Capitol, at the Capitol buildings of wherever they live and say, like, I demand to be treated fairly, right? I believe the Black Panthers did this in Sacramento decades ago. Showed up at the Capitol building in Sacramento, armed with machine guns, because they had a right to bear arms. And soon after that, they started passing, laws about carrying certain kinds of guns. Only when black people do it. Poppy Davis says, if you make them the other, you aren't even trying to understand. They are worried about food and shelter. Well, that's the thing is, I don't know. I think they're more. I'm a little confused about the point of view on this. Like, are they just mad because they're locked down? Or they're mad because they want the economy to get people to go back to work and people to be able to earn a living? On that level, like, you're right. I agree with you. And people are concerned all over the place, but also people are concerned about having money and having food and making a living and being able to do all that, but they're also able to, hold two thoughts in their head at the same time, which is, I understand there's a health concern out there, and we're trying to take care of the health concern. Please, Congress and the government and the president, could you please take care of us while we're being concerned about this health issue, right? And that's fucking logical. Like, it's logical on all levels. So, the messaging of this couldn't be more confused, and the fact that the president is, tweeting liberate, he's tweeting support for these guys, and probably wouldn't tweet support for Black Lives Matter if they had some kind of large protest action, right? If they were shutting down a Capitol building, or if they were shutting down streets somewhere in St. Louis or some other major city, the president likely would not be tweeting that they're very good people, I'm sure. So, yeah, the double standards are flying all over the place. And we haven't even gotten into Joe Biden yet, but we're not going to go there yet. We'll do that tomorrow. More on Joe Biden. More and more on Joe Biden just seems to come out. But there's a lot of different, I agree, guys. There's a lot of different ways to look at this. Some people think that allowing the government to lock us down is allowing our rights to be stripped. And not just white. I see lots of people on my Facebook page, my Facebook timelines, who are not, gun-toting white militia guys. They're urban black people, urban people of color. They're all like, yeah, they're using this coronavirus thing as an excuse to, lock us all down and take away our rights and limit our actions and limit our movement. So these concerns are being raised across the spectrum. It's not just, militia guys in Michigan that are raising these concerns, and these are valid concerns. I have another friend who's, super progressive in Colorado, and he's like, this coronavirus thing is completely a scam, designed to let the government, infringe on our rights. More quickly than they have been in the past. So there are many ways to look at this. There are many angles to look at this. I would suggest not, being completely reactionary about, obviously, a lot of people are pissed off at these militia guys. And I agree on many levels around that anger, but at the same time, I think people have valid concerns about the loss of liberty. World Rope Lamppost says Pennsylvania militia rolled into Harrisburg on an Army surplus personnel carrier. Wow. Wild. And so I have another, I have another take on this, which I kind of alluded to for a second, but which is, I kind of like the revolutionary spirit on some level. The fact that people are willing to, to kind of get out there and show their strength and be like, fuck no, even if it's for the wrong reason, fuck no, they're saying fuck no to this, right? And so I'm glad that people are out there being able to like flex their muscle a little bit and kind of put the government, the state government or whatever on alert, even, or the federal government, like, look, we're mobilizing. We're able to mobilize and say fuck no to this shit. So I think on some level it puts a little bit of fear into the powers that be, and I'm not against that. I'm totally not against that. This has been a good show, guys. I've got a lot of really good comments today. I Am Sweet Leaf says, suspect lockdown is being used as well to establish a new order of sorts. A little tinfoil hat. No, it's not tinfoil hat at all. There's a lot of people that are saying exactly the same thing. A lot of people all over the place, across many spectrums, in my life, in my social media. Many different people are saying, look out. Because what they're telling us to do isn't all it's cracked up to be. A little tinfoil hat, but habit is changed by doing something 7 times in a row makes a new habit, and we are habituizing or re-habituating. Right, the dude, you aren't starving because of the lockdowns, you're starving because of capitalism. Or crony capitalism, or the lack of the government to respond to keeping people alive. At least they know how to protest. Indeed, Gene. Right. I mean, it's like, okay, I see the ridiculousness of this situation, but I'm like, these guys can go out and put a little bit of fear in the powers that be, right? They can kind of make them go like, oh shit, wow. These guys are an organized crew of people, and they're armed. Maybe let's treat them with a little respect, right? I don't know. Judy Truitt, I was just about to go there. So the last thing I wanted to cover today. This is fairly wild too. All roads into Gallup, New Mexico are closed over uninhibited COVID-19 spread. And so we have a full-on lockdown going on in one city in the U.S. at least. New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grissom invoked the state's Riot Control Act on Friday to essentially lock down the city of Gallup after its mayor requested that she do so on Thursday. Under the act, all roads leading into Gallup are now closed off to mitigate the uninhibited spread of COVID-19 in that city. Effective at 12 p.m. May 1st, all roads into Gallup are closed. Businesses in the city of Gallup will close from 5 p.m. through 8 a.m. Vehicles may only have a maximum of 2 individuals. Residents of the city should remain at home except for emergency outings and those essential for health, safety, and welfare. Grisham's office said in a press release, Gallup, a city of nearly 22,000 people, about 100 miles west of Albuquerque, has been particularly affected by the coronavirus. As of Friday, McKinley County, where Gallup is located, had 1,027 confirmed cases and 19 deaths. Wow. According to the New Mexico Department of Health. County now has the highest number of cases in all of New Mexico, which has 3,411 cases in total. According to Grisham's press release, McKinley County has more than 30% of the state's total positive COVID-19 cases and the most positive cases in the entire state, outstripping even far more populous counties. Its infection trend has shown no signs of flattening. The release said the county has reported an additional 207 positive cases in the last 2 days alone, more than every other county in the state has reported total over the length of the pandemic, save 3. Wow, pretty wild. The Riot Control Act. So, could we call this martial law on some level? Happening in Gallup, New Mexico. The governor can prohibit people from being on public streets. It will expire on Monday. That's tomorrow, May 4th. In Grants, New Mexico, a town of around 9,000 people just east of McKinley County, Mayor Martin Modi Hicks and a group of supporters rallied Monday to encourage business owners in his community to defy the governor's lockdown order. So, there you go. So radical steps being taken in Gallup, New Mexico to slow the spread of the virus. Wild stuff. Yeah, and a lot of people are worried about the precedent for this kind of overarching control. And I think that people are rightly worried about an overstep by of authority, and the precedent that it sets for overstepping authority in the future, right? Judy Truitt says our county had only 1 positive. She visited the Navajo reservation and she just died a couple of days ago. So 100% death rate in my county. Wow. Scott Andrews, the French government is more afraid of the yellow vests than of the virus. Boom. As they should be. As they should be. To 730,000 people would have died by the time they make a vaccine. Creative experiments. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. Right now we're at around 250,000 total worldwide. So that's quite likely. I mean, it would have to still accelerate for a while for us to reach that, or maybe there's a second wave. I don't know. We're going to see in real time what happens because they're actually opening up. Several states are beginning to open up. Georgia, Texas, I'm sure I'm missing a bunch. But they're starting, some states are starting to kind of ease their lockdown restrictions. Maybe Florida is in there too. So we're going to see in real time how the virus reacts to people, congregating again or not having as much social distancing, or people, attending gatherings, or people going to work. We're going to see. We're going to see what happens. Raza Remen, save water, shower together. Good, great suggestion. Judy Truitt, that's an interesting comment about cancer cases. I actually have a really interesting video to play for you guys, and I've been trying to play it for you for the past couple days, but maybe I'll get to it tomorrow. I'll try tomorrow. 3 million predicted worldwide deaths by the end of May, says Henry Holt. By the end of May? Well, we're at over 3 million cases worldwide. And we're at 250,000 deaths worldwide. So it would have to continue to accelerate like pretty drastically to get to 3 million deaths. I'm not saying that won't happen. However, I think it's plateauing in many places. Even in the States, it's kind of started to do its plateau thing. Some places. So it would have to accelerate in other places. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. All right, guys, I have reached the end of my time. Thank you so much for being here. I have enjoyed chatting with you today. Thank you for your eyes. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. I will be back tomorrow at the regular time, 11 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Yeah, I know. I got you, Cornelia. Well, I'm about to sign off anyways. But yeah, I'm about to sign off, guys. So I will see you again tomorrow at 11 a.m. at the regular time. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. Until next time, peace.